All right. We now are officially live from the area code 713. Give me a second. I'm going to just ensure that the audio is coming in crystal clear on this side. All right. All right. There we go. So audio is working on that. Come on, go ahead and continue to this. Make sure that is good. Perfecto. All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump right into it, everyone. Going to wait for a few more folks to start jumping in here. And now I am working this back in here. So let me see if I can go backwards. All right. Whew. This is a lot going on this side. All right. Let me go ahead and switch over to that. Shrink this a little bit. Okay. All right, everyone. Well, here we go. And so everyone who's on here live, go ahead and comment below where you are from. And then those of you who are viewing at a later point would love to hear from you as well. But how we do this is towards the middle, I'll go into some chats. And then at the end, I will go into some questions that have been submitted throughout here. So don't hesitate to ask any questions for those of you who are on here live. And then those of you who are viewing this at a later point. Just want to say appreciate everyone so much for being on these. There's so many different things that you could be doing at this time, and you're listening here to myself. So, all right, let's go ahead and jump into the first point where this topic is how to get started in real estate with no money. And I'm going to give several different stories when it comes to this, and because I know the typical is, hey, there's this point, but this is just going to be more stories on one. I was able to get my very first ever deal that was no money out of pocket. You guys, I'll tell you, I was absolutely broke. I actually had negative funds in my bank account, just not being financially smart in my early 20s, but still was able to find a way and talk through that first deal, and then also talk about when I bought my very first multifamily property. So in 2013, beginning of 2014 is when I bought my very first single family house. And then just 4 years after that, I bought my very first multifamily property, which was a 46 unit. So let's go ahead and jump into it, you all. As mentioned, I appreciate you so much. And here we go on the first and foremost point. But yes, want to welcome everyone to the stream. So let's jump right into it. All right. So my first ever deal, and I will show you visually what this property looks like. Let me go ahead and remove this here, stop screen, and then switch it. So this is my very first ever property, and I'll just pull it up so you'll be able to see this visually. There's quite a bit of different things that are going on up here. So here we go. I'll share the whole entire window. Perfect. All right, so here we go. So this is the very first ever property that I bought here, which was 1720 North Leland. And how it all started, you guys, is okay, here we go. Here is how it all started was one, you got to start with the mindset. That's first and foremost. If you don't have the right mindset when it comes to this, because I see many people, they'll look at it as a barrier that, hey, I don't have any cash. There's no way that I'm going to be able to get my first deal. I'm going to have to save a certain amount or whatever the excuse or limiting belief that they do have is. But I can tell you firsthand that as long as you start with the belief and just be more of a problem solver and have the growth mindset, that will allow you to go that much further. And this is one that I wanted to share with you just when it comes to mindset. Let me go ahead and pull this up here in the background so you'll be able to hear this. All right. So this is what I wanted to share with you as far as quotes. And I'm not going into what he did recently and all that. This is more of just mindset. So let's play this. Let's see. I want to make sure that I'm sharing the tab so you can actually hear the audio. Give me a second there. All right, share, and then here, and then Chrome. All right. Where is it at? Perfect. Here we go. So you can hear it.
I really want to say to children out there and to people who are watching, Confucius said one time, he who says he can and he who says he can't are both usually right.
All right, so that's what I wanted to share just right from the jump is that it starts with belief in having a growth mindset, and that's exactly how I ended up starting. Was one, I was in construction. Shortly after that, I ended up coming across the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then that's when I said, well, I got to become more of a investor because you don't get rich and wealthy by actually being a laborer. So that's when I started the investing, and I knew that I wanted to start with single family homes and actual property, but I didn't have the cash. So now I took this point in time and said, okay, well, I know I don't have the cash, but there still is a way because I know other people have done it. And so from that process, that was the next steps that I ended up finding someone, and they was working out actually at my CrossFit gym that I was training for a world record. That's a whole nother another whole nother story itself. But I was training for a world record, and I started building a relationship with this one person. Let me shut this off. I started building a relationship with them, and it was just pure value based. I started working for him for completely free, and the reason why I ended up picking starting working with them for free was he was where I wanted to actually be. He was already in real estate. He owned a few apartments actually at his own property management company, and then he had his own property management company, and then also he had some property as well. And so from there is I just simply approached him one day and said, how can I be of value to you? And I started working in his property management company, just helping out on day to day. And then from there is he wanted to diversify, interesting enough, from multifamily to single family. Normally it's from single family to multifamily, but I wanted to get into single family. And that was perfect a match, because the thing is he had the cash to buy the deals, but he didn't have the time to be able to do it. And that was the other key thing that really did help in the value exchange, is that one, I had the time to buy the deals, but I didn't have the cash. He had the cash, but did not have the time. So in that case, this is the next steps that I started taking, was going out there and figuring out, okay, now how do I find the deals? And so I was doing the yellow letter. So I was the handwriting these myself. Yes, I was handwriting all of these myself, and it was quite intensive, I would say. I picked a specific neighborhood and found all the ones that were owner occupied, or I was very niche down and said, I'm going to pick this specific neighborhood. Started the handwritten letters, and then also I was putting up the bandit signs. Yes, the we buy houses. And then also I was going to networking events as well. So I was using all these different channels as a way to start to get deals in the pipeline. And then finally ended up getting one, and this is the one. I wish I could just can I change the screen share? All right. Nope, that did not work the way I thought it was going to work. So the next step, and I'll show you what this looks like. So this was the property here. Let me show you this. So as mentioned earlier, 1720 North Leland. So this property comes down the pipeline, and the purchase price is $25,000. Yes, $25,000. And this is in Indianapolis. And I know some people are thinking, well, is this a shed? Or is this, because in places like California, you could even get a piece of a land for that. I know. Yeah. So with that is, this was the very first proper. So the deal came in, and then once it underwrote it, looked at the numbers, and at this point in time, I was only using rules of thumb. I wasn't actually underwriting it to a T, actually using a calculator. So one, that was a mistake that I first ended up making. But in Indianapolis, you could actually get the 2% rule on properties. Now it's very difficult to get that. But what I mean by that is the 1% rule is if you're all into a house for, let's say, the purchase price as well as the rehab, $100,000, 1% of that will be $1,000 in the rent. However, for this property was looking at a 2%. So it would be all into it. We were expecting to put 15,000 into it and then be all in 40,000 and then be able to rent it for 825. So use that rule of thumb. It made sense. I brought it to my mentor, and he said, yeah, let's go ahead and proceed with it. And then that was when he ended up funding the purchase price. And then I remember going to the transaction with the title company. So after that, I basically got thrown into the fire. Sterling, go figure everything else out from that point in time. So this is just a little bit more details. I've since no longer own this property since I transitioned out of single families. But that just goes to show you that one, at that time, this how much inflation and appreciation has came into to play. So it was all into that property. One, rehab ended up being more than expected, but is was all into that property 60,000, and now it's worth about I would say the fair market value on this is between about 120 to about 130,000. So a quite a bit of equity within this property, and really shows you how much the values have gone up since that point in time. So there is that. And let me go ahead and switch this here. So that is the very first deal, but it just came down to the value exchange. And I knew that I didn't have the cash myself, but I knew that I would be able to create value from someone else. And I just looking at it as being as a problem that you just simply have to solve. So let's go ahead and shift over to a couple of the chats here. Those of you who are on here live would really enjoy hearing from you. And then also everyone who was on here at a later point, the same thing as well. Would enjoy hearing from you too. And let's go ahead and do this. All right. Yeah, would enjoy hearing from you as well. So we got Anthony, great to hear from you from South Florida and New York. And then we also have George from Oklahoma. All righty, perfect. All right, so let's go ahead and go into our next point here. Is that the other route that you can go on the side of getting what is it? No money down is seller financing, and seller financing works in a way that you're able to negotiate how much you could put down. So essentially, it's and I'll give you a case study on this as well. And how it works is you agree upon a actual price, and then you can negotiate what money you actually have to put down. And if you're savvy enough, you can actually negotiate for there to be no money down. But it really comes down to how motivated the person is on the other end. And if they're not that motivated, then in that case, that may that they it's likely that they will not be. Let me go ahead and put this down. It's likely in that case they're not as interested in doing the no money down situation. So that's just what you have to consider, that you may have to actually put some money down in that case, but that money doesn't have to be yours. And this is the thing that another common question that people come up with is that, okay, well, how, what is that? I mean, where do I get the money from? Where are these investors? Is first starting out with your family and friends. Yes, you know someone who knows someone, or maybe you do have a rich uncle. But and however, if you don't have family, is you just got to put yourself out there and just telling everyone what you do. And as an example, for me, my very first investor was someone I worked out at the gym at. So that just gives you an example. And it comes down to actually building a relationship and the value. So if you're trying to go in right from the jump and saying that, hey, I'm in real estate investing, I want to partner with you on my very first deal, I have actually always taken the angle of being value oriented first. Because if you're having that, what's that word I'm looking for? Not eagerness, but they can sense the desperation if you're really pushing them and saying, and they can feel that when you are somewhat in a scarcity mindset that, hey, this person, I don't know, they're a little bit too aggressive and wanting to me to invest with them. They may get a little concerned, or you're just maybe pushing a little bit too hard. But if you take a little bit more of a passive approach and really look to build a relationship with the individual, and if you're able to bring more value to the table, in essence, you really, in a way, they feel on the side of obligation to actually invest with you, saying that, man, this person has created so much value for me. It would be dumb, or I would feel guilty to actually not invest with them. And that is what happened on that very first deal with my mentor at that time. Is it was the same thing. Is I brought so much value to the table. I worked for them for completely free. And in exchange, he said, well, this looks like a good deal. I know you've been able to put in the hard work. I trust in you. I'm going to put my hard-earned dollars into the property because the numbers make sense too. And one thing I was able to negotiate on that very first property was, instead of just taking a simple wholesale fee and being out of the deal, I actually was able to negotiate equity in it. So he got majority, which was about 90 percent of that, and then the I was able to get the 10% equity on that, and then right after that, just moved on to another deal. And from there, just really got the snowball effect, and it just kept snowballing from there. So the key was just to get started, but really just to have that growth mindset. And by having the growth mindset, and knowing that, okay, this is the situation I'm in, however I can still figure out a way to bridge the gap from where I am, which is being broke and not having money to buy a deal, to partnering with someone who can invest, and in exchange I bring the property to them. And that's how I was able to get that very first deal. But on the seller financing, one example that I want to give to you is my very first multifamily property. So how this worked is, let's go ahead and pull this up. So this was my very first property here, on the multifamily side. Let's bring this up. Is here. So this was Garfield Place Apartments. Let me ensure that you can see that. So perfect. Yes. So this was Garfield Place Apartments, where this was another one that was no money that was put on my pocket, that came out of my pocket. And this started with a cold call. And one was taking the driving for dollars approach and looking for properties that needed work. And this was one that as you can see here, it was very bland. So this is before the renovations were completed. And there's my 2001 Honda that you see right there too that I drove. Those things are great on gas. But yeah, as you can see, this property needed work. So what I did was, all of this information is public record, so you can pull this. And I saw it was owned in the LLC, and then from there is you can skip trace the LLC, and there's different sites that you can use. What is one? This is let me see, open corporate, yeah, open corporate. So just pulling this search up for you. So this is one site that you can actually use to skip trace to find out who is the owner of that LLC. So this is one that you can use in just about every market, or you can use the county directory and find out who is the owner of that LLC. Sometimes the owner will actually have it in their personal name, so you don't have to take this extra step. But many of the times when you're dealing on the multifamily side, they will have it in an LLC. And then once you find out that person's first and last name, hopefully their name is not as common as John Smith. That would not be the best. But yeah, hopefully yeah, their name is not as common as that. But if that is the case, most of the time is they do have a unique name, and then you would just use a platform such as True People Search, search.com, to then type in their name, and then get their contact information. So let's say, what is it, Joey or Peyton Manning. So there we go. So let's say you got Peyton Manning, you're looking for him, for instance, and uh, then you would just click on Peyton Manning, and then you would be able to get their contact information here. And there's more additional, when it goes to skip tracing, there's additional steps that you would be able to confirm that this is the right Peyton Manning. But that's a whole nother topic in itself when it comes to the skip tracing. But this was a similar process that I took, was saw his own LLC, found out who filed the LLC, got their contact information, and then just picked up the phone and asked them whether or not they were selling. And this was a seller finance deal, to where they it was $900,000 was the agreed upon purchase price, and then the 200,000 was needed to put down as a down payment. And I remember that first initial conversation, the seller, the owner of the property, said, "Well, if you do not have $50,000 to put down as earnest money, we don't need to continue this conversation." And this is where the sales really comes into play. Is that I said, "Hey, no issues. No issues, Chris. I'll be able to come up with that." Had no clue how I was going to be able to do it, but I had the conviction that when you're committed enough, you'll find a way. Creativity follows commitment. That's one of the quotes I heard from Grant Cardone, is my go-to when it comes to that. So creativity follows commitment. And so from there is that one finally agreed upon the purchase price, $900,000, and then put down needed $200,000 to put down. And then at that time, before this, through all the single families that I was buying, both my partner Jacob and I, we built the track record and also relationships with additional investors. And then from there is was able to raise that cash from those investors to put down as a down payment. So that was another no money down out of our pocket, out of my pocket on that particular deal as an example. But this is one thing I do want to express is these things do take time. And as mentioned, those of you on here, love to hear from you. Any questions that you happen to have, go ahead and just put those down in the comment section that are on here live. And you can even do this at a later point too, because I personally respond to all the messages. And then at the end, I'll be reading off some of the questions that you do have. All right. So and just back to the point on here is that yeah, $200,000 was needed to put down and raise that from investors, and that was just it comes down to patience to building those relationships. I was just on the phone call with an investor. This was 2 weeks ago, and they mentioned that they're on the website Bigger Pockets, for instance, and he's raising money for a deal, and he's looking to go on Bigger Pockets and start to really build those relationships with investors. But he's more so not really looking to build relationships. He's going right in and saying, hey, I got this deal that I am needing money for. And actually Bigger Pockets started flagging his post that he had, because it's you got to come from the angle of value based. And if you're going in with that type of intention, people on the other end are going to feel that. But if you go from the angle and give so much value, then in that, in exchange, you'll say, okay, this person has created enough for that for me. And when I say a value, of course, that's loosely thrown out there, but there's so many different ways. Is that one, if someone is having trouble with analyzing a deal, you can help them on that. Or if they need a contact or a property manager in some certain market and you're in that market, you can make the introduction. So that's what I mean specifically on how you can be able to create value for someone. So that is just details on that very first deal on how that was structured. And then this is just some more detail, show you more on the after. So this is the before that you see, and then this is the after. So the decks were painted, the parking lot was restriped, and then also not paved, but sealed, so put black over it. And then all the roofs were replaced, and then you can see the decks, and then renamed it from South View Apartments, which you can't see because there's water on the Google car, but is renamed it from South View Apartments to Garfield Place Apartments. And that's typically what you'll do when you buy a property that has been mismanaged, is you'll essentially go in and you'll just clean up what's already been there. And a good way to do that, one from a marketing standpoint, is just rebranding it all together. So that's on how that very first deal on the multifamily side was put together with no money that was out of pockets. And lastly is let's go ahead and go to wholesaling. Everyone's familiar with this. Simple, straightforward, where you go in, you get a property for, or you get it under contract for essentially, let's say, at a discounted price, and then you find an end buyer who's willing to pay more. So that one's straightforward on that. And one deal that I just recently did a wholesale. Gosh, what was the name of that? The Whitfield Apartments. Here we go. Indianapolis. So this was one that back in my hometown. So, all right, here we go. So the Whitfield Apartments. Let's see if this comes up. So how this worked, all started with the cold call, very similar. And the person was motivated to sell the property. And what it came down to is that he was a attorney here. He originally was here in Indianapolis, bought the property for investment purposes, but then started to age and just could not keep up with maintaining the property. A lot of the pain points were coming to him because he ended up moving to retire from Indianapolis to Florida, and then had his son that was managing the property. And it just did not work out so well because a lot of the pain points kept going back to the dad. And from that was a sign of motivation. So in summary, ended up getting this for $296,000, ended up closing on it with hard money, and then ended up selling it to an end buyer for just under $400,000. So there was that spread that was in between that one, that spread that was in between that was profit. So that's just how the wholesaling, and there was some money actually that was put down from the hard money side, because it was closed, used a hard money loan for that, got it stabilized, well, not what is it, cleaned it up a little bit, and then sold it to the end buyer, because this property actually ended up closing on it right during the pandemic. So there was about 2 to 3 months where there was hardly any activity, because everyone was figuring out, okay, what is going to go on with the C-19. So there was that. So that is just some examples for you all on uh, some and some actual case studies of deals that there was no money that was used out of pocket. So I appreciate you all so much. I will go ahead and see you next week. And those of you who are listening this at a later point, one, don't forget to like and subscribe to content. Those of you on YouTube, those of you on LinkedIn, go ahead and like this video. It would really mean the world, so more people can see this, especially if you are able to get value from it. And then go ahead and comment below with pineapples if you made it all the way to the end here. So until then, you all, I appreciate you so much. Keep being awesome. All right. And let me see here. All right, here we go.